Hey everyone, thank you for coming, the weekly briefing. Carson and Jason are joining me today, and Nico should be jumping on here in a minute also. We did an event last week in New York City called Assembly. Maybe a lot of you on social media might have seen that if you're in any of our feeds. Assembly is kind of a unique event just in how it got started and then what it actually is. And Carson, I think I've given you this feedback, but like, if anything, it's too short. It's 4 hours with all those people and all those people. It's a lot. So many things to talk about. It's almost too short. But why don't you kind of kick us off and just give us a 30-second history of what assembly is and why you started it, because it will make more sense of then why we're seeing it as a trendsetter or at least a barometer for what's going on in trends today.
Well, first of all, you may be right. It might be too short. The amount of emails I've sent since assembly saying "How did I miss you?" Is just too many. But yeah, I'll try to keep this brief. And before I do so, thank you, Tim, for your continued support and for even just not just this conversation we're having today, but you've always been a sounding board of mine, and just appreciate that.
Of course.
We we started Assembly in 22 because there was no other networking events available. Everything had been shuttered. And for those of us that have been in this industry for a while, you probably remember the days of Promax and the days of, and really the great part about Promax was those times of just being at the bar with everyone, and those were the moments. Those was when you met the client you wanted to meet or caught up with a colleague you hadn't seen in years, and that was really the magic of that conference. And it was really sad when that was no longer. We were like, why don't we try it ourselves? And so at the time, Tony Cadillac and myself were a part of one of those classic uh, COVID Zoom happy hours, but it was only made up of about six of us biz dev guys who were just, mad at the world that we were trying to figure out how to sell in that
Yeah, I
environment.
remember those
Eh,
days for sure.
And so I just pitched it to the group one evening of like, hey, what if we threw our own event? And yes, it's odd. We all sell for different companies and we're all competitors by day. But if we dropped our swords for one night, maybe it's a raising tides, raise all boats scenario. And so that's what we did. And as people know that on the agency side of this business, it's all so interconnected and there's so much respect between a lot of the shops, that we just picked up the phone and started calling, our competitors and friends and saying, hey, would you be down? And ultimately, we had that first event in May of 22 in New York. It was a pretty small, humbling, but fun
It was
event.
like
It
50, 60 people, right? I mean, it was
Yeah, I think we claimed
each person brought
75,
three.
but
Okay, yeah,
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 I think we claimed 75, but I don't know if that we certainly weren't tracking like we do now. But
yeah.
anyways, not to take up all the time on that, but we did walk away from there with that same Promax bar feeling.
Yeah.
And so we knew we were onto something, but we didn't, I don't think, realize what we were actually onto. And that was the connection really of it was less agency to client and more client to client. The consolidation on that side of the business is so great. And, you could be a VP at one place and somehow not know your counterpart at another studio. And that is wild. And then not to mention, how do you translate your skills and learn about the job market, yada, yada. So really that was a lot of the feedback we got. And that became apparent that was a pretty important part of what made Assembly start taking
When
root.
I explain to people a little bit of your start, and I say, well, these agencies got together and they invited their clients in order to introduce their clients to other agencies and other clients. People are like, wait, why would you ever kind of take your precious client and somewhat give them away? And I think, well, first of all, you did meet everyone else's clients, so there was an exchange to it. But the idea of like an abundance mentality and the
Hmm.
thought that there is so much more. Um, and the Promax lobby is literally where I met Jason and became a riffing
Yeah.
consultant for cause and effect. And there always was something of like, it was okay to be in that network of people and get to meet people. So,
Yeah.
Jason, you
I
were a
mean,
sponsored this. Oh, go ahead. Discussion.
well, just to that point, real quick, is like I think our counter argument to that has just always been like, one, give your clients more credit than that. I know, and I know the my clients that are really good at what they do don't look at me the same way they may look at Cause and
That's
Effect or
right.
Laundry or etc. They know that what we do is what we do, what they do is what they do, and they don't call us all for the same thing, no matter if we may think that or not.
Yeah. And if there's competition, let the best team win at this point, but you don't lose the client
Yes,
forever just because there's a project there.
it's
So
fair
Jay,
game.
as a sponsor, there's a buy-in moment here, isn't there? Like you kind of have to know that the value proposition's there, and then you bring clients too. So,
Yeah, and we
Carson has it easy. He's a salesperson for somebody who owns the business. For you own the business, tell us what it's really like to put up the money and put up the clients to make the thing happen.
well, we were lucky. Hi, everybody. I'm Jason, the co-founder of Cause and Effect. We were lucky because we were able to, through Tim and Josh at Big Star and Carson, we were able to attend last
Oh yeah,
springs in New York as well as LA in the fall, and so we got a real good sense of sort of the power of it. Um, and then basically it was like Carson, it was like the first one's free, always free, right? And then we and then we got a taste of it and we're like, and when Carson says it was like Promax, I mean it really is. And I mean those moments of just sort of spontaneous connection just don't happen anymore. Especially we're totally virtual, so we don't have any office space anymore. And so just to be able to get together in a room or out on the patio with our clients was amazing. And just to the point, Carson, of or everyone bringing, like, we had no reservations about inviting our clients. Number one, because most of our people are already on the list anyway, because the studio list is substantial, and we all play somewhat in the same pool. Um, Secondarily, it wasn't like, I mean, we definitely approached it like this is for our clients. We are here, like this is an opportunity for us to connect on a deeper level with our clients. So for us as a studio, like yes, there were some people that maybe somebody else brought in, but like, and we might have known in the past, and maybe we've disconnected from them, and then able to reconnect. But it wasn't like we were on a, oh, first of all, we're not salespeople, so we suck at that. But the, but just, I mean, these moments, I mean, to speak to the Promax BDA or like Promax, like or lounge area outside the venue. I mean, we have a kind of a great story where I met um, a creative director at one of the streamers who like I overheard him talking about San Francisco and living there, and I had lived there, and we had a conversation, and then cut to like 6 years later, and I don't know, $7 million later, you know,
yeah.
we it's just those things actually do happen, and those connections can be made, and it's super valuable.
Yeah, the term I often use when I describe a conference is permission granted, right? So, like the reason you're at the conference, the reason someone at the conference is to meet people. So you don't have to. It's not a hard ask to say to somebody, "Where are you from? What do you do?" Because you're trying to make that connection as fast as possible and get into those stories. So great that
Totally
dynamic
agree.
is absolutely beautiful that way. And
I
then,
that
okay,
we no the permission granted thing, that is such a good term and note on conferences and events like Assembly, because at our event, one thing that we have name tags, and that is something that has been argued and debated on our side of things forever, because there's a big portion of people that think they suck and they're nerdy. Why are we wearing these? Josh Norton included. But people need that,
Mm.
and I kind of think it's great that it's not awkward at assembly to stand there and say, oh, you worked at, cause and effect. That's great. Tell me, you know what I mean? It's like permission granted, and that's great.
Yeah.
That's why you're there.
That's right, Andrea. That's exactly why we're there. It's why people show up, and there's no burden for entry. Plus, like, you're in a industry event, so we all know we have something in common. We want to learn those common traits. Here's what I found that was interesting, kind of this round. So, to pivot the conversation a little bit from just the history and the makeup of what assembly is to what it actually felt like on last Thursday or last Wednesday. And welcome, Nico. Glad you could be part of it. You're going to pick up. I'm going to throw this one to you, Nico, too, because I'm curious if you felt the same way. So I've been to a few of these now, and I kind of see a pattern of, like, it felt like the reunion, and then it felt like a party, and then it felt like too big of a college party. And this one felt like the space was great, the numbers were great. By the way, I think now you're close to 500, Carson. I don't know if you started really with 50 or 60 or 70, but we're clearly in a critical mass of conversation. And more and more time, and more of, like, my conversation this go around wasn't about saying hi. It was really about checking in and then expressing an idea of trends. And I thought that was really interesting, of like, oh, we're maturing as a 500-person body that's meeting twice a year to see how we're doing. What's going on with you? Some people I could say, hey, maybe I can make those introductions for you or find you that position or whatever. So there was a lot more of that play happening. And I felt like trends were also popping up. So I'm curious if you guys felt like you had the same experience. Were people talking about trends in the industry, movements are taking place, theories of what they're going to do with their career, anything like that?
I think generally I agree. I think. Hold on, I'm not in mute, am I? Can you guys hear
No,
me?
you're good. Yeah,
Okay.
we can hear.
Definitely a lot of it was, catching up, seeing kind of where, I think there's people that I've caught up with, knowing where they were, and that was more like, okay, this is what happened since then, but also this is kind of what I'm seeing. There was a lot of conversation actually with that, kind of like plans for the future, kind of what's next to do. There was a few of those little conversations with that. At least I had a couple.
Yeah. I saw some consolidation. Like, it felt like certain individuals were joining other companies. So seemed like some companies are doing either acquisitions or bringing on and making their team bigger. And you could see that collection of those companies growing in this space.
Yeah, I'll say the biggest difference I saw versus a year ago was it was very doom and gloom a year ago, and that seemed to be very pervasive. And I know it was a beautiful spring evening, and we were all outside. It couldn't. But I also do like the conversations were more about sort of positive future versus like existential dread in the now. And there still was that definitely because that's just the world we're living in. But I walked away. And the other big thing that I heard from multiple people, like one person said, I look forward to this because I was like, oh, well, oh, you're here. Like I totally, it was somebody new who somebody else had invited. And I was like, oh, you made it. And like, I wouldn't miss this. This is the best night of the year. Literally, somebody said that. Like, not a sponsor, one of the clients. And another person said, I really look forward to this event every year now, which I was just like, oh yeah, cool. Like, done. That's all you need to say, right?
Yeah, that makes it established. Yeah, if there were word bubbles, those one where the letters are big, when it's used more often and small, it's not. Last year, I would say the words probably were paramount: merger and like AI. And what's funny is I feel like the word AI has evolved into different things, because I'm pretty sure we talked about AI, but I didn't hear the letters AI as a catch-all last week at all. And now we're obviously post Paramount merger, so we're an evolved industry and new things. The players are somewhat determined instead of the doom and gloom of like not knowing and not knowing what the results were going to be.
That's such a good observation, Jason. I don't think I'd put, you know, thought about conversations last year over this year, which you're so right, and that's positive, and we need that. You know, networking is a muscle that has to be exercised. And when you don't, you kind of lose it, you know, it's use it or lose it. And I hear that a lot in regards to assembly because I think people, you know, have not are out of the practice, come to an assembly, get thrown back into it, remember why they love those type of scenarios, remember why they love to be in person, and then get home and digest it all and are like, did I meet anybody? Did I talk about anything? Like, did I accomplish anything professionally that I wanted to besides just kind of being overwhelmed with excitement and being back in person? And so when they come back the next time, they're a little bit more willing to have these conversations and kind of have their talking points a little bit more on the brain. And then that naturally flows into more organic conversations that, you know, get the onion starts peeling back per se. Like, you know, you start with a basic topic and then you start realizing, oh, we're humans in the same industry experiencing the same thing. And it's really nice to kind of have this conversation and compare notes a little bit.
And I felt, do you guys feel this too? Like it didn't feel as, or at least I personally didn't feel as desperate for every conversation. Maybe when I first went in there 2, 3, 5 years ago, whenever this thing got started, 3 years ago, maybe I jumped in. I wasn't sure when the next one was going to be. I had not seen people very long, and you felt like, oh, and a little bee buzzing around trying to see every face possible, not very deep, but kind of just touching it. And this go around like, oh, it is established. I'll see you again in 6 months. So the kind of busyness factor, I felt like the entire group wasn't as buzzing. And you can get into and slow down in the conversation and invest instead of having, you know, you guys all know the one, the floating eyes where you're like, people are like, yeah, yeah, it's really great to see you. Anyway, and then they jump off. That kind of like, I don't know, attitude was a little bit different this go around, which again, I think therefore you could hear the trends and hear how people are really doing.
So I have a question. I didn't
sure.
attend the event in New York. But of course I attended the one in LA and it was fantastic. And you know, it was it brings back the Promax opportunity, you know, that just walking two steps and oh my God, how are you? You know, like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and that's a beautiful thing. And so I really appreciate that about this. And so grateful that you guys have done it. But how many people from LA that are based in LA actually travel to New York for the event? I'm curious.
I met a few actually.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah. I was like,
Maybe
oh my
I'll
gosh,
have to do that.
are you here just for this? Are you here just yeah? Some of them were there just for that.
It helped that the Emmys were
Oh
that
yes,
week and
same
some
week,
other
right.
stuff in New York. So right, and that was intentional, right, Carson?
Yeah, it was. Last year we did it this last May at our New York event. We timed with upfronts so we could get more LA attendance. And then this year it didn't really we did kind of a survey and some research, and it showed that more people would be coming east for the Emmys because you had back-to-back sports Emmys, news and doc Emmys all that week too. And so people were pretty vocal about, I'm coming out for the Emmys, but I'm not, you know, going to be for upfronts, or the people that were coming out for upfronts were willing to stay. And so that's what kind of made that decision.
That's great. It's good that your guys are being strategic about that, Carson, because thanks, Andrea. The you know, the fact that you are playing to the strengths of the group of people that are going and recognizing kind of like there's other needs that people have than just showing up to your event.
Well,
It does
when
feel
we
like you guys are becoming
started,
an anchor event, though. You can almost in the future become the anchor for other things.
totally. I mean, well, when we started this, we were pretty strict about East Coast events are sponsored by East Coast companies, and East Coast invites, we kept East and West very separate, but that quickly became muddled because why shouldn't an LA company, I don't know, it just became like, okay, throw that out the window.
Yeah. It's funny how it evolves, huh? Your thoughts of what would be helpful and then what plays stuff out.
Yeah.
What other kind of like trends did you guys are you catching up on? Like if you're tuning into this conversation and you were in the room, what would be helpful for others to kind of recognize that they're hearing or, you know, strategies that they might implement? What are your takeaways? Maybe it might be an easier way of saying it. What are your takeaways from the night that you'd like be want to share with others?
I think in the conversations of AI, I think I was talking to a lot more people who were more into this is kind of what we're doing with it versus this idea of like, I don't know what we're gonna do with it. There's a lot more of that. I think some people have figured things out a little bit and are kind of moving forward. And at least on those conversations with AI, it wasn't like this. Like I don't, yeah, it just does everything. I'm not so sure what to do with it. And questions about how to handle that with your clients and how clients are actually handling it as well, because it's a different level in terms of like there are certain things that either big uh, corporate clients are not allowed to do in terms of use of AI. So I think it was more of those really navigating that conversation as opposed to it's like, oh, is it gonna ruin our jobs kind of a
Yeah,
thing.
it's no longer the like this or this to it, right? It's now like, okay, now that it's here, here's how I'm seeing it and using
Right.
it. Yeah, that's why I feel like we don't say AI anymore. I think we're talking about method and process more than
Yeah.
yes or no to the technology. Yeah.
I don't know. I think from my perspective, it kind of piggybacks off of what you two were saying about the vibe a year ago versus now. But I think people's anxiety has come down a little bit. I think, our side of the business, if you're a studio in this industry, you know that for the past 5, 6 years, every year the competition gets rich just a little bit. It's just a little tighter and a little tighter and a little tighter. I mean, there's just like zero margin these days. And I think with the consolidation and AI and all that, it's been really stressful. And because as a studio, I think you're always trying to be on the curve and ahead of the trends, and how are we evolving these tools and how are we using these tools and what are our process, to now I feel like people on both sides of the fence, be it a client or a studio, are saying, you know what, I'm just going to focus on doing what I do and doing it great. And these are tools and they're going to come and go. And these are projects that are going to come and go. And these companies are going to come and go. But like, all I can do is focus on me. And that's what I'm doing. And that's helped me a lot. And I can totally relate and feel, similarly.
Yeah, I think the to counter that, the anxiety that I did encounter was really just about the Paramount Warner Brothers deal.
Mhm.
Um, but that's also just who I happen to be talking to. Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
aside from that, I think it was, people seem to have settled in. A lot of people were talking about new roles, like new jobs, new roles, which was exciting, right? It's part of the positivity. Um, so yeah.
Yeah. The other, not just new rules, but I feel like, Carson, I think you might have said this before we jumped on, but the introduction of the brand category and people's client list is just growing. The recognition of who we used to be in those quote unquote Pro Max days, which was obviously all dedicated to broadcast and broadcast sales. That same body of people have evolved in those years to trying to find new markets. And that's elevation of, or the accumulation of new brands that people are working with, and even brands that seem to be present at this event more than just the, we'll say, traditional broadcast.
Yeah, I'm gonna put Nico on the spot here because I met your lovely wife at Assembly, and this was the conversation we had. She told me all about Rezonate, and now she's with LinkedIn, and we had this exact conversation about just that transition, and not just as an individual and a professional, but also as an industry as a whole, and where things are evolving and going. And so, for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. And that includes me.
Yes. Yes.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
I'm not making the announcement for you, Nico.
What?
That's why I said I'm not making any announcements for you. You're just
Oh no, no,
you're,
no, yeah, yeah. I
you're
mean,
over the show.
no, no, no. It's funny because that same night was a whole question. It's like it was a it was a transitional night, and then the next morning I'm currently with Versus. So
Yeah, like it
Wait, it
came out that
happened
night.
that night, or the
Yeah,
news came out that night?
no, 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 no. The news didn't come up because I had to decide. My
Yeah,
decision was can't happen in the morning after assembly.
that sounds like a very Justin move. Put you to it, bring you to a big event, and then set you down and be like, sign
exactly right.
Although he had nothing to do with it, actually. It was me. I was holding it off. It was given to me Monday. And I was like, oh, I don't know. And I was holding it off, and then I had more questions, and then I'm like, why, why? It was like my big question, and then the next morning, and I decided. So it was, and I don't know what I guess it was a nice feeling around in terms of like just kind of people. Like I was again just mentioning people catching up, people I haven't seen. I mean, guys from Cause and Effect. It's been I think like 4 or 5 years that we haven't seen each other like in real life. So that was kind of nice. Um, and then yeah, it's like, and you're right. A lot of it too. We bumped into other people, different roles, changes, and it's like, oh great, and then and outside of this, let's reconnect and then like go further in those details. But it was a nice kind of like reconnection, knowing where people are now, and then like afterwards, like yeah, let's go hang out and have coffee, and then let's figure out if we could do something together.
you.
Yeah, it does look like a
Congratulations.
Justin move though, Carson. You're right. Like, come over here, kids.
Yeah.
Have a cigar. I'm gonna sign you up right now.
We actually
Now
threw
or
this
never,
party for
baby.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's definitely some of the plays you can see out there, and some of the familiar faces kind of you could kind of keep track of because we're gathering together, and you can the touch points that happen more often definitely helps that out. Um, I'll just one last thing I kind of noticed is that you know, you're attracting other agencies from than the usual crowd too. I ended up talking to Patrick from Tendril, which I want to say his
Mm.
or Forever is the mothership there. The first time they sponsored it. So there are other like traditional commercial agencies that are playing into the whole assembly game. So really the idea that you're not simply kind of keeping it insular, but recognizing the opportunities, need, and growth to bring in more sponsors and create a larger network has been pretty amazing.
Thank you. We're trying to represent a community, it's all sides of it. And so it's hard needle to thread at sometimes. But it's great to get new blood in there and showcase a new company, a new point of view, a new side of the industry, whatever the case may be.
Yeah. It's about 4:30 right now, so I know that some of us have to kind of take off sooner or later. But anybody have any last minute comments or questions they want to throw out there? We'll probably have 2 or 3 minutes if there was anything.
Have you set a
Ollie,
date? Have you set
oh,
a date for LA?
We are, yes. No, the short answer is no, but we have narrowed it. As of this morning, we are narrowed down to October 15th or October 22nd.
Yeah, that's about when it was last year, as I recall.
Yeah, similar timing. We're trying, we look at HBO Max and we look, or not HBO Max, we look at Adobe Max and, other events that are happening around the same time and try to place it at a time that's advantageous for everybody.
that's great.
Yeah, I think next time I can't wait to try LA. It was like this past month was my first versus my first assembly, so I'm very excited to like get the feel of LA.
It's amazing how different they can be and how different they can feel, like as you all know, but
Yeah, it is kind of funny if West Coast East Coast feeling of things, isn't it? Yeah,
yeah.
Interesting.
yeah.
I mean, just a quick note, like just a simple example we were talking about this morning, and I said, I got a lot of good feedback that people really liked it being on the event being on Wednesday, and we're looking at Thursdays in LA, and the immediate note I got back was, that's New York though. In LA, a Wednesday wouldn't work. A Thursday would be way better. And I'm like, you're so right. And I don't know why that is right, but it is right. And
Yes, because Thursday's the new Friday in LA.
I
Yeah.
guess, you
People work
know,
from home on Fridays. Thursday is the last night they're going to be commuting somewhere. They're not going to leave their house to go to it. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Traffic is Ollie put. It's exactly Ollie. That's always the answer. Traffic is different, isn't it?
oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. You guys
Finding
always
it.
choose great venues too, Carson. So it does kind of like, it's fun to have that part of
Thank
the
you.
experience as well. Yeah.
Thank you. That's also something that's much harder in LA.
Okay, I'm going to ask this question. I'm going to put you on the spot, Carson. So it's going to be uncomfortable just for a second. But more people do want a sponsor than you accept. So how do you actually become a sponsor? Just luck, skill, and a good network, or do you try to lottery it out or something like that?
Still a process we're figuring out, I'd say. You know, Jason's heard this because he's had the whole introductory meeting with Tony and Mitch and I. We're cosplaying as event people. We have day jobs doing something very different. And so we're learning as we go. And while this event has become something really special to a lot of people and really great in a lot of ways, we're still learning and figuring out how to do it and what makes sense from a sponsorship standpoint to a location standpoint and on down the line. So I would say it's a science that's not totally figured out yet. We do have a waiting list right now, or like a list of people that have consistently been interested. And yeah, it comes down a lot of times to what is going to be the best mixture of companies there that represent on the highest level we can. But again,
Um,
no science right now that I could actually say. Probably something we should figure out.
but a little bit of a chemistry test. I kind of, know
Yeah.
a few pieces that you're saying. Well,
Yeah.
one like this and two like this and whatever, but it's not everybody the same,
Well, it kind of goes
nature.
back
So
to
it's,
the origin of it and what you said about everybody putting in their client list. You know, the only way that works is if everybody's on the same level. And so you can't, it's not fair to a company that's been around for 25 years and worked their ass off to be at a stature in this industry that they're at, to then just hand over their contact list to someone who's 2 years in and, trying to break in. While we respect that and want to encourage that, it's not really apples to apples and it's not fair to everyone participating. And so that is something that has to come into play here of like, is everyone kind of the same ilk in
yeah.
a manner that makes sense to trade such personal information?
Well, I would put it this way, like, that's a good event, a good idea for an event. That's just like your event. You guys had something specific in mind of what you're doing, which is legitimate and good. And there are other needs and whatever. So there's plenty of space for other gatherings and purposes, for people to get inspired and start their own stuff as well. So,
Totally.
all right, you three, thank you very much for kind of joining me and putting this together. Carson, we all want to say thank you for the effort. Can you pass on to Tony and Mitch that we appreciate those
Yes,
guys as well
thank
for making it
you.
happen? Yeah.
You're thanking me, but you should be thanking Jason. It would not be possible without the sponsors and their support and their patience with us, But thank you for that. And thank you, Jason, for your support. And Tim, as always, thank you for your support
Yeah, I
as well.
appreciate it, guys.
Good to see everybody.
Yeah, good to
Take
see you
care.
too. And we'll see you guys all next week, next Wednesday. But otherwise, have a wonderful week. Later, guys.
Bye.
Bye.